Alright, so it's day 49 of going through my old journal entries, and Monty is back again. So the quote for this day was, "There are two kinds of people, those who do the work and those who take the credit. Try to be in the first group. There's less competition there." And then, so this is another question, I guess, about work ethic. It says, how's your work ethic? If you were a boss, what qualities would you attribute to a good work ethic in your employees? So if you're following along, go ahead and pause the video and take a few minutes to think about what your response to this might be. And I'll be back here in a second with what I wrote. All right, so So day 49. All right, he won't stay still, so we're gonna hold him for now. Day 49, how's your work ethic? If you were a boss, what qualities would you attribute to a good work ethic? Let's see what I wrote. I feel like I have a pretty decent work ethic. I generally like to stay busy and get things done. At most of my jobs, I'd say I was a top worker. I would always try to do my best, but I've struggled a bit with my current job. It's hard for me to be self-disciplined. That's a word I keep trying to think of, self-disciplined. When there's not much oversight. I know a lot of people would probably love to have less oversight at their job, and I wish I were better at setting my own deadlines and getting things done without procrastinating, but I'm realizing that it's something that's been an issue for a long time for me. Only more recently has it really started to have the substantial negative effect. Well, oh my gosh, Monty. Okay, lay down. I said, well, really, it started with me going to grad school and has progressively gotten worse. I feel there are times that I'm a good worker, but it sort of ebbs and flows. So I think that might be related to, I've mentioned this a couple of times, that I think I have ADHD. It's not diagnosed, but I tend to have these times where when a deadline is coming up, I'm like hyper focused, so much attention to detail. I can really like push through and do a good job, but without like having all of these set deadlines, it's hard for me to like do a lot of work consistently. And so like with other jobs, like hourly jobs that I've had, you know, you've got the deadline of like, you've got to be on work on time. You've got to clock in on time. And, you know, once I would get clocked into work typically and get rolling, like it wasn't hard for me to like get started with work or whatever. But for like this kind of job where it's more like self-discipline and getting your work done every day, it has been a struggle for me. But I will have deadlines for things, and so it's kind of like when I have a deadline coming up, kind of like I've always been in school, you know, I wait until the day before the test to get that rush of adrenaline from fear and stress or whatever, to get it done. So there are days and weeks, and even like I think it changes with my hormone cycle. There are weeks that I just feel like I can focus really well and work is a lot easier for me, and it's easy for me to stay motivated and to be productive every day. And then there's other weeks that it's almost impossible. I've got brain fog and I'm just tired and I feel like I can't. And I mean, having my habit tracker, and then as weird as it is to say, but I think nicotine gum has like changed my life, because on those days that it is hard for me to focus, I feel like taking nicotine like gets my brain back and I'm able to focus with it. And I think for most of my life I was self-medicating with caffeine, because I've read that, which I need to look more into the studies, but I have read that sometimes with children with ADHD, giving them sodas helps to calm them down, because of like the caffeine and everything has like, you know, some people it gives them like an upper effect, but with them they could focus better. And I I used to tell people, like, you know, people would be like, oh, Mountain Dew has too much sugar, it gets me too wired. And I was like, I could drink a Mountain Dew and go to sleep. Like, it just, sodas didn't have that like wiring effect for me. And I drank sodas like almost my whole life, and I've just recently tried to like start cutting them out. But I still drink coffee, but I don't feel the effect as much. Like nicotine is like an instant effect. So I don't know, I don't necessarily recommend people going and trying nicotine because it is an addictive drug. But I mean, if you're, I was to the point that I was struggling so hard with keeping up with work and school, and I don't like feeling like I'm a bad worker. I like to be a good worker. You know, I don't want to feel like I'm not performing well. And so when it got to the point to where I felt like I physically could not do it and I needed something, and you know, I reached out. I didn't necessarily want Adderall. Like I'd heard that there was other like ADHD drugs that were options that weren't, you know, like stimulants like Adderall. I just wanted to talk to someone and be like, is there something you can give me? Because like right now, like life is not, it was impossible. And the psychiatrist I talked to was just, he wasn't listening to really anything I was saying, and I just felt helpless. Like he had suggested saffron, and so I left the call thinking like maybe saffron, you know, and I got online and ordered a bunch of saffron, but it just wasn't really doing anything. And then I can't remember what prompted me to try nicotine gum. I think I can't remember if I'd read something and ordered some online or picked some up at the store, but like it just helped immensely. Like I feel like nicotine gum, I've never really had Adderall before, but I feel like what the nicotine gum gives me is what maybe Adderall gives other people who I don't know, but it's working for me. So I feel like my work ethic in the sense of like a job where I have to be self-motivated is getting better. And I've talked about in previous videos of how I'd kind of like to maybe run my own business or organization or something, but I've never felt like I could because I didn't think I was self-disciplined enough to do that. But now I'm starting to feel like I'm getting to a place where I am. So anyway, after that tangent, so it ebbs and flows. I said, I think for me, I think the best quality in an employee is for them to take pride in their work and put forth the effort to do things right. In my experience, most employees will do this if they have proper training to understand why things are done in a certain way, and if management respects and values them. And I don't leave a lot of comments on like YouTube videos or like TikTok posts or anything like that, but I actually left a comment on a YouTube video regarding this today. And it was a girl who was saying that, you know, she had this background, this education, and whenever she got out of school, I can't remember what it was, like some sort of like graphic design. And when she got out of school, all the jobs that she was looking for were entry-level jobs, but they wanted at least 2 years experience. And she was like, well, how do I get 2 years experience if I can't get an entry-level job? And so she applied for a job that wasn't necessarily in her field, but she just applied for it on a whim and got the job. And she's like, it wasn't necessarily the job that I want, and it's not the job that I have a background in, but she's really enjoying it. And she brought up the point that like, you know, it's not like a high paying job. She's like, I just needed a job to fill in my resume. And she's like, but they didn't care that I didn't have a background in this. They like the fact that I'm willing to learn something different and something new. And it sounds like that the job really like values and respects her. And so was saying that like, I really like this job, but it sounded like maybe some people in her family weren't happy that she was working that job because it wasn't as, what's the word? Like, not just high paying, but like, she wasn't like a doctor or I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean. Like, jobs that are viewed as like higher esteem, higher prestige or whatever. And you know, getting paid is another one, like if you don't make a lot of money. And honestly, like I could be making a lot more money than I'm making now. And my boss has told me that. She's told me that like she feels bad that they've stopped. I'm not getting raises every year. I've been working at the same job for over 5 years, and I did actually get a raise this year because you have to submit like a packet to get a promotion, but we don't get like the annual raises or anything like that. And I see the job postings for jobs in fields related to mine, and I could be making substantially more money, but I don't know how they would value me. I know that my boss values me, and I know, and I'm thankfully not living in a place where I'm struggling to meet my basic needs. I'm meeting my basic needs. I have enough money to get by. And so I don't want to risk like quitting this job for another job to make more money that is not going to treat me well or respect me. So, and I posted on that one post because I had worked at 2 different places. I may have mentioned this in a previous video, but I worked at Disney. I know I've talked about that, but after working at Disney, you know, I knew they don't pay very well, and it might not be the same because it was like 10 years ago that I worked at Disney, but they didn't pay very well, but most of the workers were content with what they were being paid. They were living, you know, if you weren't a college program employee and you actually had to find a place to live in near Orlando or around Disney, you were typically living with roommates. Like nobody working on a standard Disney salary could afford to have like an apartment of their own. They were living with roommates. Some were working multiple jobs, but Disney, when I was there, in my experience, treated the employees pretty well. Like the training was great. Like you knew, I felt like compared to other jobs, they invested more time in training you, even though I was college program and I was only going to be there for, 4 months to a year. They would do like a week or 2 of solid training and make sure you knew what your role was, you knew what you were supposed to do, you knew how to address issues that come up. Like the training was so good. And then, you know, for the most part, like they gave you the tools that you needed to do your job, and they had this system where you would rotate your position, so you weren't, it was kind of like they had taken all this science to try to figure out, and they'd figured out like if we keep our employees happy, like they were on the line of like, let's pay them just enough and give them all of these things to keep them happy, to the point to where, because if we keep them happy, they're going to do a good job and our guests are going to be happy. And, you know, if we don't keep the employees happy, they're going to come in with bad attitudes, and then that's going to show for the guests, and the guests aren't going to have a great experience. So, like, anyway, I got paid roughly the same amount working at Disney as working at Walmart, but it was like night and day experience. Walmart does not invest in training their employees. They don't invest in giving us the supplies that we need. Like, you think they, like, every day, like, we would be fighting over like the ticket printers to print labels for the shelves, and the scanners to be able to scan the stuff because they didn't keep enough of them there. And yeah, they just they don't respect the employees, at least at the store that I worked at. And like, even though I was making the same amount of money, I would never go back and work at a Walmart on the store level, probably not the corporate level either. But I would go back and work for Disney, honestly, I think. And a lot of my friends did. They finished the college program and went back and worked at Disney. Some of them still work there. So, even though Disney doesn't pay a lot, doesn't pay a living wage, there are ways that companies can like make up for that by treating the employees well. So yeah, I think it's a mix. Like there are some people that no matter how well you treat them, they're still going to want more and they're still not going to be satisfied. But I think based on my experience and going through like certain like restaurants or fast food places or retail shops, you can typically tell, like, if I get bad service, the first thing I think is like, this place has bad management, because in my experience, the service that the employees offer is usually indicative of their management and how they're treated by management. So yeah, I think a lot of work ethic and employees, a lot of it I think comes up to the companies and the employer. So that's just my opinion. And based on what I've seen in my own life and how I feel personally. So yeah, a lot of you employers out there, if you have trouble keeping employees or, you know, getting good employees, you may try to look at yourself and be like, okay, well, am I paying them enough? And if I don't have the money to pay them more, what else can I offer them? Is it there's something that I'm doing to them? Are you not treating them in a way that, you know, makes them feel like you value them? Because if you don't value them, they're not going to value your business. Like, it's not their business. They're not getting anything out of, if you don't value them and respect them, they're not getting anything out of working for you beyond the paycheck. And if you're not paying them enough, then you shouldn't expect them to do a good job. I mean, that's just my opinion. So yeah, anyway, that's my response for day 49, and I will be back tomorrow with day 50. And I believe there's 200 days, so looks like we are maybe a quarter of the way through. So